Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa for all the latest news from across the continent here on France 24, coming up on the show. With South Africa facing a growing wave of sexual violence against women, one survivor is seeking to change the legal definition for consent. We hear from her in an exclusive interview while she takes the case up with the Constitutional Court. Then the M23 militia has decided to vacate its positions in the eastern DRC. Violence between the rebels and Congolese troops has forced hundreds of thousands to flee. Many displaced people are now being housed in cramped refugee camps where squalid conditions have triggered a cholera outbreak. And with the Accra Fashion Week underway, it's time to meet some of Africa's top designers who are kickstarting a style revolution. Coming up, it's all glamour from the Glitz Fashion Week, one of Ghana's biggest events in the calendar. Thanks for joining us. South Africa is set to decriminalize sex work under proposed new legislation. The country's Justice Ministry hopes the move will help crack down on violence against sex workers. This latest bill, however, would not regulate the sex industry, something possibly set aside for a later stage. And it comes as South Africa struggles with a wider rise in crime against women from all walks of life, with rapes up 11% compared to last year. 1 in 3 women in the country will be raped at least once in their lifetime. And now many are calling for law changes to protect victims. With the help of an NGO, one survivor has appealed to South Africa's highest court last month to change the definition of consent. She's agreed to an exclusive interview with our correspondent in South Africa, Nadine Taron, on the basis of anonymity.
It's been 4 years, but her voice is still trembling.
I was invited to a party. When I got there, it was only the one guy there. I did say no and I did say stop, but I also did freeze. I did try and push the person off of me, but when you are pinned to a couch with your legs above your head and pressed against the top of the couch, what am I going to do?
She lost her court case because she could not prove that she didn't want to have sex. And for an accused to be convicted, it must be proved that he had the criminal intent to rape. This young woman's case has now become a textbook case for the Constitutional Court because an NGO based their case for changing the legal definition of consent on it. It was the initiative of this lawyer who says that South African law lags behind the rest of the world. This process can take 3 to 6 years.
With the law as it currently stands, the more perverse an accused person's views are on, for example, consent and rape, the higher the chance of them getting acquitted, because there is a lesser chance of the state, the prosecution, being able to prove that in their mind they believed that they were raping someone. Where the accused now actually has to have some sort of responsibility in making sure that the complainant did consent.
While the number of rapes increase every year in South Africa, the number of convictions are decreasing because the verdict hinges on the notion of consent.
Most common cases, I believe, wouldn't be the ones with a gun to your head or a knife to your throat. It's more the everyday common cases where you didn't consent but you were still raped.
A Constitutional Court victory won't change anything in her personal case, but it will help her to feel a little less trapped by the feeling of injustice.
In the DRC, the M23 rebel group announced earlier this week it was finally ready to withdraw. Since March, fighting between the militia and Congolese army has led to more than 400,000 civilians fleeing to the nearest refuge of Uganda, with hundreds more families arriving every week. Camps are saturated and the government and UN overwhelmed. In the eastern DRC, meanwhile, the spread of cholera in local refugee camps is threatening to add to those woes. Laurent Bersteger has more.
As the fighting rages on in eastern DRC, a new threat has begun to loom: a spike in cholera infections in refugee camps. After fleeing the violence in North Kivu, Christine noticed her son had fallen severely ill. She took him to the clinic, where he was diagnosed with cholera.
We arrived 3 days ago. He started getting sick and throwing up, so I brought him here. He was very tired. They've been treating him, and I see that he's slowly regaining his strength.
Since the start of the M23 insurgency a year ago, tens of thousands of displaced persons have been flocking to camps outside Goma, the regional capital. There, refugees live in squalid conditions, with entire families packed inside small huts with no toilets or running water. Lack of basic hygiene means the camps have become a breeding ground for diseases such as cholera, which has already infected 250 people in 10 days, according to Doctors Without Borders.
People have so many problems. They're vulnerable to diseases like malaria, hepatitis, diarrhea, and cholera.
Faced with the influx of patients, humanitarian organizations are ringing the alarm bells and warn they're lacking the funds and equipment to contain a full-blown cholera epidemic.
New research from the West African country of the Gambia has found that rising temperatures are causing distress to fetuses. The implications are grave for female subsistence farmers, many of whom work through pregnancy. Sam Bradpiece brings us more from Dakar.
We already have evidence that extreme heat increases the risks of stillborn births, premature births, and low birth rates. But this study was the first of its kind to focus on workers from the global south. Researchers in the Gambia, where temperatures are rising at a faster rate than the global average, analysed 92 pregnant women, all subsistence farmers, to measure the impact of higher temperatures. And what they found was shocking. For every 1 additional degree of heat stress, they estimated that there was an increase in 17% in fetal strain. Essentially, what this means is that higher temperatures mean that the heart rate of unborn babies is increased and the blood flow through the umbilical cord is reduced, posing a threat to both mothers and unborn babies alike. Now, of course, subsistence farmers in the global south only account for a tiny, tiny fraction of global greenhouse gas emissions. But what this research suggests is that they are already feeling disproportionately the impact of global warming. This research is yet another reminder, another indicator that the human species as a whole, and particularly those in wealthy, developed countries, need to decouple from fossil fuels. They need to stop using fossil fuels, because the impacts are already being seen in yet another example today.
That's Sam Bradpiece from Dakar. Time for more news from across the continent. US President Joe Biden will next week back a permanent spot for the African Union to join the G20. Biden will make the announcement during a 3-day US-Africa summit that opens on Tuesday in Washington. His administration has continued to back the AU's diplomatic role, while seeking to strengthen ties with the bloc amidst growing influence from Russia and China. Then the International Monetary Fund and Ghana are expected to reach a staff-level agreement on a loan deal by Tuesday. With negotiations ongoing, sources say the program is expected to be an extended credit facility, providing the country financial assistance. Ghana turned to the IMF for help in July, with the country's finance minister saying he hoped for a relief package of up to $3 billion. And Russia has told Zambia it pardoned Lemekani Nirenda from his prison sentence to go and fight in Ukraine, where he was killed. Moscow had previously announced that Nirenda, a Zambian student, had died on the battlefield, with Lusaka then asking how he ended up fighting in the war. In a phone call, Russia's foreign ministry confirmed that he was pardoned in August to join the country's invasion of Ukraine in exchange for amnesty. Accra Fashion Week is underway in Ghana. France 24's culture show Encore travelled to the West African cultural hub to meet some of the designers kickstarting Africa's style revolution. Here's a taste of the show from the Glitz Fashion Week, one of the country's biggest events in the calendar.
I'm so excited. Actually, this is my first time on Glitz, and I'm very, very happy to be on Glitz. Wow.
Glitz Fashion Week is a fashion week for designers across Africa. and the models too across Africa. We all come together to work and showcase what Africa is all about.
But now we see Ghanaian designers evolving and trying to adapt from different cultures and different ethnicities and different backgrounds and then putting them together to fit the contemporary style we have now. So, I mean, kudos to us, we're doing so well.
Pour moi, le Ghana, c'est l'un des pays où la mode est beaucoup plus développée. Contrairement aux pays francophones et tout, le Ghana, c'est un high level.
Ghana is one of the rising stars in terms of fashion. We have very innovative designers that are working with the elements we have here.
It's not just about talent, it's about the business side of fashion and beauty. And there's access to market for them, there's funding for them, there's branding opportunity and all of that. So that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I'm hoping that we can use the platform that we've created in the last 10 years. That's what we have done. I mean, we've worked with a lot of brands that are now showcasing abroad and now selling and spotting, but we want to see more of that.
And finally, Africa's World Cup hopes are on the line on Saturday as Walid Regagi's Morocco take on the high-flying Portuguese outfit of Fernando Santos. It's been a dream run for the Atlas Lions, who have defied expectation to beat Spain in the last 16 on penalties, becoming the first North African and Arab team to reach the quarter-finals. Of course, we wish the Atlas Lions all the luck when they come up against Portugal on a Saturday. Well, that is all the news that we have for the moment here on Eye on Africa. Be sure to stay tuned for more on France 24. It's bye for now.
They observe. They contact us. They report, film, photograph. They are the voice of the voiceless. Your eyes in the far-flung reaches of the world. The Observers, a network of 5,000 committed citizens working with France 24.
One of our observers in Côte d'Ivoire, Gaspard.
Amateur footage and testimonials checked by our journalists and broadcast weekly. On The Observers, on France 24 and observers.france24.com.